A thread by Kanakoa the Great. Executive Order. In 2018, the President of the United States declared a national emergency to deal with the threat of foreign interference in United States elections. In 5 days, a report is due by Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe to be delivered to Steve Mnuchin, Chris Miller, Chad Wolf, Mike Pompeo, Bill Barr, and the President of the United States. From the executive order, quote, "The assessment shall identify to the maximum extent ascertainable the nature of any foreign interference and any methods employed to execute it, the persons involved, and the foreign government or governments that authorized, directed, sponsored, or supported it, affected the security of that infrastructure, the tabulation of votes, or the timely transmission of election results, including voter registration databases, voting machines, voting tabulation equipment, and equipment for the secure transmission of election results," end quote. A witness affidavit from a former 305th Military Intelligence Battalion analyst says, quote, "Dominion software was accessed by agents acting on behalf of China and Iran in order to monitor and manipulate the US general election in 2020, end quote. The analyst used digital forensic tools to conduct public security scans of Dominion voting systems and Edison research. Dominion voting systems domain name was registered in Hunan, China, and being accessed through the internet service provider China Unicom China 169 backbone. The scan also showed Edison Research has an Iranian server. A deeper search of the ownership of Edison Research shows a connection to BMA Capital Management, where share of ear, and BMA Capital are connected to Edison via a virtual private server. BMA Capital Management is known as a company that provides Iran access to capital markets with direct links publicly discoverable on LinkedIn. There is your link between Iran and the Edison election database. On October 30th, 2020, CISA and FBI reports that an Iranian APT teams were seen using Accutenix, a website scanning software to find vulnerabilities within election company websites. These scans showed that foreign agents of aggressor nations had access to US voter lists. The analyst concludes that this provides unambiguous evidence that Dominion and Edison were certainly compromised by rogue actors such as Iran and China, by servers and employees connected with rogue actors combined with easily discoverable leaked credentials. Quote, "These organizations neglectfully allowed foreign adversaries to access data and intentionally provided access to their infrastructure in order to monitor and manipulate elections, including the most recent one in 2020, end quote. Link in the thread from courtlistener.com, Exhibit 105. While the 305 military intelligence witness affidavit hasn't been discussed much, it is clearly saying that there was foreign interference in the US election. News NTD did a segment on it. Let's listen, shall we?
Another affidavit was submitted by someone whose name and personal information was redacted. This person was an electronic intelligence analyst with extensive experience as a white hat hacker used by some of the top election specialists in the world. A search of Edison Research showed that they had an Iranian server, and there are records showing China accessing Dominion voting servers. Edison Research reports the vote count tabulation to Decision Desk HQ for election results. According to the affidavit, the digital forensics analysis shows there is unambiguous evidence that Dominion voter systems and Edison Research have been accessible and were certainly compromised by rogue actors such as Iran, and
China. Kanakoa continues. Colonel Phil Waldron, a cybersecurity expert, also discussed U.S. election data being sent outside the U.S. Quote, "We observed packet traffic going to a server in Frankfurt, Germany. Prior to the election, one of our white hat hackers found traffic going to a Scytl server." Let's listen, shall we?
This is a Spiderfoot reconnaissance tool that looked at dominionvoting.com network that was analyzed on November 3rd. And basically this shows vulnerabilities. It shows volumetric internet traffic, the raw data. It shows all of the web servers, physical coordinates, all the vulnerabilities that are associated with the server. But basically, it does show that this was connected to the internet on voting day, and the volume of traffic was significant, and the vulnerabilities there are plenty of vulnerabilities that hackers could penetrate the system.
Can you tell if some of those communications went outside the United States?
We did observe packet traffic that were going from the U.S. Now, we don't know if it was specifically Dominion traffic going, but to a server in Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt, Germany.
Bits of information that are sent over the internet from internet protocol from one point to another.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's in Frankfurt, Germany that would be of interest?
Well, we looked prior to the election. One of our white hat hackers, and found that there was traffic in a Scytl server. Scytl is one of the companies, and I can show you we mentioned before the interconnectedness. So this is sort of a historical link to all the voting companies, and we got Smartmatic in the middle. It's a licensor to Dominion Voting Systems. Scytl runs election night reporting through SOE software and Clarity Elections over here. And Clarity Elections is, if you click up on a lot of the county and Secretary of State voting systems, it'll pop up as property of Clarity Elections.
Kanakoa continues. An affidavit by Dr. Keshavars Nia, a 35-year cybersecurity expert for DIA, CIA, NSA, and DoD, concludes that a man-in-the-middle cyber attack via operatives using USB memory cards with results being forwarded to servers in Frankfurt, Germany. Dr. Keshavars Nia finishes by saying election data was altered, resulting in, quote, hundreds of thousands of Trump votes transferred to Biden. He says the evidence is overwhelming and incontrovertible. According to Bloomberg, Dominion Voting Systems is, quote, Canada's largest election system provider based in Toronto, Canada. According to Forbes, Scytl was founded in Spain out of a research project at the University of Barcelona. Do these companies sound foreign or domestic? Let's turn to Attorney Lee Dundas.
Trump declared this state of emergency in 2018, September 12th, 2018, 6 months after he had a chance to watch the midterm elections play out and determine if there was any funny business going on in those elections. Is that a coincidence? I doubt it. It directs the Director of National Intelligence to conduct a threat assessment that gets delivered to AG Barr and to Trump and to the Secretary of State and to the Secretary of Defense, who up until last week was Esper, and who was let go by Trump. Again, a coincidence? I doubt it. The executive order allows you to impose sanctions on foreign entities who interfered. So let's deconstruct right now this little foreign piece, shall we? According to Bloomberg, Dominion Voting Systems is Canada's largest election system provider, and the company is based in Toronto, Canada. Does that sound like a domestic company or a foreign company? Cytel, according to Forbes, was founded in 2001 in Spain, and according to Wikipedia, Cytel grew out of a cryptography research project at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. In Cytel's press release, again, not exactly a domestic-sounding entity, more like a foreign entity, right? In Cytel's own press release, it notes that it continues receiving electoral and industry expert recognition from a variety of organizations, including a company known as Ovum. Ovum's research analyst is Nishant Shah, who lists an affiliation with Global Business Coalition. And guess what, folks? Global Business Coalition had as its founding supporter, you guessed it, George Soros. Cytel's research analyst Shah is also connected to the Acumen Foundation, on which board George Soros' daughter sits. There's also a recent interview with Sidney Powell a day and a half ago that you should watch. If you haven't caught it, I'm going to give you select quotes that I think are particularly interesting, given that we now know we've been in a national emergency that was declared 2 years ago over foreign election interference by President Trump. Powell said, "So if you want to talk about foreign election interference, we certainly have it now. We have staggering statistical evidence." I repeat, she said, "We have staggering statistical evidence. And for fraud this serious, I think even if the states are stupid enough to certify the votes where we know the machines were operating and producing altered election results, if they are stupid enough to do that, then they will be set aside by the fraud also." And she concluded that interview by reminding people that these are federal felonies. Altering a vote or changing a ballot is a federal felony. And
Kanakoa continues. President Trump told us all year long that adding 35 million extra mail-in ballots to the 2020 election would lead to massive fraud. He tweeted, "The greatest election fraud in our history is about to happen. This may top the Democrats illegally spying on my campaign." Real Donald Trump. After monitoring 2018, the president set up a contingency plan in case state legislatures and courts failed to do their constitutional duty in 2020. The executive order is the trump card, and Joe Biden isn't going to like what happens when President Trump plays it.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.